Okay, my phone's recording. It's not the best, but it works.
All right, as
So,
long as it works. That's
okay,
the big thing.
awesome. Okay, and so I'll just start answering or asking these questions. Um, can you tell me about yourself and describe your background in brief?
Yeah, so my name is Caden Sidwell. I am a customer service professional that is pretty savvy with about 8 years of experience in supervising a customer service call center team of about 15 people. I've worked in customer service a long time, and I focus strictly in making sure that the customer's experience is overall pleasant and things like that. So yeah, that's just kind of a little bit about what I do. I've spent the last 7.5 years at Select Health, so that's kind of where I've
Well,
been.
that's really exciting. That's like a lot of experience. That's a lot.
Yeah.
How did you hear about this position?
I was referred by one of the internal employees in the customer service area. They figured that I might kind of be able to bring a lot of that skills and experience to your guys' organization.
Well, that's awesome. What type of work environment do you prefer?
I prefer, do you mean like working at home?
Yeah,
Or
exactly. Like at home, in office, like individually or in a team.
I feel like I'm a pretty adaptable to either type. And so I've spent the last 2.5 years, obviously kind of with the pandemic and doing what it did. I've spent the last 2.5 years working at home, so I've got plenty of experience that way. Prior to that, like I mentioned, I've been at Select Health for about 7.5 years. So 5.5 of those years have been spent working in an office setting and things like that as well.
So good at both.
Absolutely.
Okay, how do you deal with pressure or stressful situations?
I think a lot of that comes from making sure that mental health is kind of taken care of. So obviously just trying to take some time for myself away from work and making sure that I'm doing the things that obviously are making me happy while at work. But as far as at work and a lot of the pressures that deadlines may cause and things like that, I spend a lot of time planning a project and really kind of focusing on that deadline and working backwards to figure out the tasks that help meet those deadlines on time. So yeah, that's kind of how I deal with a lot of the pressures and things like that. And rather than trying to prioritize a schedule that way, I just make sure to schedule priorities instead. So a lot of the most important things that I have to get done first, make sure that those get on the calendar, and everything else I have to do just kind of trickles in between.
No,
So
that's a good strategy.
yeah.
Do you prefer working independently or on a team? And we kind of talked about this one already, but we'll focus on the team or individual part rather than working from home.
Yeah, for sure. And the team aspect of it, I kind of help manage a team currently, and so working with a team I think is one of my very strong strengths. Working individually, obviously I can do as well in kind of more of that work at home environment. A lot of us are much more isolated, and there's not really anybody over your shoulder helping you keep accountable to a lot of the things, and so I put a lot of that pressure on myself to be able to meet a lot of those deadlines and deliverables and stuff that we give out to our clients.
Okay, awesome. When you're balancing multiple projects, how do you keep yourself organized?
So I mentioned this one just a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
The scheduling priority strategy, I think, is a really important one. But outside of that, I also kind of keep a very detailed and color-coded to-do list. I'm more of a paper type person that way. I know that sounds weird, kind of working from home and things like that, but being able to write things down in an actual notebook and just kind of help keep a lot of those priorities straight. That way I can kind of make sure that any of the ad hoc type tasks and projects that come my way don't slip through the cracks. And obviously I can kind of keep those and merge those into where the priorities stand.
Okay, awesome. What have you done in the last year to improve your knowledge, I guess, within this job industry?
Yeah, that actually is a fantastic question. So especially in the customer service field, like I mentioned before, the mental aspect of it is very, very important. And I feel like COVID and kind of more of a pandemic type work environment is definitely putting pressures and things like that on a lot of the customer service industry, and it makes it very difficult to have people like want to come to work because there's just lots of stress. And usually in customer service, you're not really getting pulled into people aren't calling, I guess, to be happy.
Yeah,
There's
no, for sure.
like so you just kind of have to take that with a grain of salt and make sure, again, that your mind is right. And so I spend a lot of time reading a lot of like self-help books to help with a lot of that mindset side of things. But more than that, I stay engaged with a lot of customer service conferences, and I attend lots of leadership type trainings that the company gives to be able to stay sharp, I guess, for the people that I help support on my team.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. What are your salary expectations for this position?
That is also a great question. I would like to try and see maybe if we can move forward with the interview and kind of discuss, obviously, salary and things like that as time kind of progresses, and if we get farther along in
the interview
in our
process.
profession. So.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Are you applying for other jobs?
Currently, I am. Obviously, customer service is more broad, and kind of in my role, I play a little bit more of a consultary type role, helping consult with a lot of outside organizations on how they can help improve their customers' experience and satisfaction. And so obviously kind of managing a team right now at Select Health is my main thing, but I also help consult many other organizations on how to do their customer service thing. So
okay, awesome. This one's kind of random. From your resume, it seems like you took a gap year. Would you like to tell us why that was and what you learned from it?
I actually went on a service expedition in a foreign country. And so that was about an 8-month expedition that I went just helping serve members of Bolivia. So I went down there to kind of help build some organizations and things like that to be able to help provide clean water to a lot of the villages and everything that are down there. So that's kind of
impressive.
What that time was spent doing. So
awesome.
Serving in a different aspect than customer service.
Yes. Well, why should we hire you?
I feel like my customer service and my relentless focus on that customer experience overall is one of the things that helps really stand apart on my end, I guess. So the customer service side of things, I feel like any job that is done, you are performing customer service in some realm or another. So whether that be, if you're on IT, your customers are the people on the front line that you're helping to manage their computers for. And, obviously their satisfaction matters to the end consumer for a business. And so I kind of help operationally with a lot of the customer service side of things, anywhere from the front line to all the way up at the tip top of an organization that helps kind of trickle down to a lot of those frontline employees and things like that. So I think that I can provide a lot of value in just about any place inside of the organization that will help with overall operation and customers and employee satisfaction for that matter. So
okay, awesome. What strengths do you bring to a company?
Communication, I think, is a big one. Obviously, leading a team doesn't come without its need for that communication. So communication, I think, is probably one of the biggest strengths. And there's no such thing in my mind, I guess, as over communication. So that is one thing that I really help drive into my team currently. But in addition to that, I feel like accountability, especially in the customer service realm, accountability is one of the biggest things. And so accountability on all fronts, just kind of getting feedback, trying to figure out what it is and see the picture how it is. And then also additionally, what kinds of solutions or what else can be done to help find, creative solutions to a lot of those problems. And then the biggest piece of that accountability is making sure to follow up on a lot of that feedback that's given and things like that. So those two things with communication and accountability, I think, are the two biggest strengths of mine, among a slew of many others.
Okay, yeah. So now that we talked about strengths, let's talk a little bit about weaknesses. What do you consider to be your biggest weakness?
Biggest weakness is...
That's a hard one.
Yeah, it is hard. You kind of think of them, in the heat of the moment, but...
Yeah, and I guess, list your biggest weakness, and then how would you, overcome that in a work setting or something?
For sure. I'm going to contradict myself just a little bit.
No, that's okay.
That, communication obviously is a big strength, but there are times where it can be a big weakness, and that's kind of where some of these issues come up that a lot of the customer service reps and everything may need to help resolve. So communication, I think, sometimes can be an extremely big barrier, but in terms of overcoming a lot of that weakness, that is where, like I said, accountability kind of comes in as a strength. Kind of getting a lot of the feedback and really understanding the situation as it stands so that we can help find creative solutions to a lot of those problems. Yeah. So I've particularly run a lot of what we call rapid process improvements. Mm-hmm. And so it's just basically a meeting, an all staff meeting where I sit all of my folks down and kind of say, hey, I need some feedback. Like, this deliverable wasn't met, and obviously it's causing a bit of an issue. So that current state isn't exactly the desired state that we'd like to be in. And so what obviously led to that problem, and how can we avoid that in the future? And usually we'll just kind of use that brainstorming situation to be able to help drive solutions. So, sorry, you're gonna hear my dog in the background.
That's okay. Okay, what would you consider to be your biggest professional achievement?
Biggest professional achievement, I think, is it kind of came at the very beginning of the pandemic, and so far throughout the course of the last 2 years. I think in the business world, there was this big thing that people tried to call it, I guess, the big resignation, or the great resignation. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. COVID happened, people got sent home, and that kind of created a lot of isolation and loneliness kind of in the workplace, and it was harder to get employees engaged into the work they do. And so as a result of that, the turnover rates inside of our organization skyrocketed all the way up to about 60%, which would mean that, the people that we're bringing in, 60% of them are leaving, which is outrageous. It's crazy. But during that time, I have been able to maintain at least 90% of my direct reports that are on my team by focusing solely on a lot of that employee engagement and connectedness, even in more of a virtual world that we live in today.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Tell me about a time that you demonstrated leadership skills.
Every day of my life.
I thought that'd be an easy one for you.
Yeah, for sure. But more specifically with the leadership skills, there was a time of change. So to kind of elaborate a little bit more on the previous example that I gave, during that time, we're losing about 60% of our caregivers. Caregivers are what we call employees, I guess. Uh-huh. But a lot of the employees and things like that were leaving the organization, it created a bit of a problem, because we have more than 1 million members that are calling in every single day trying to find answers to their problems and get their claims fixed and things like that. And so we had to find some creative solutions, and one of those creative solutions was to be able to partner with an outside staffing agency to be able to outsource some of our dental phone calls that were coming in on our dental insurance product line. And as a result of that, that kind of created a little bit more tension and worry, I guess, for a lot of the current employees, thinking that their jobs are in jeopardy and things like that. So I had to, again, kind of have a rapid process improvement with my employees that way, and just kind of mention, hey, we're only dealing with the dental insurance side of our product. All of us who are on the medical side of things have nothing to worry about. We're obviously going to continue business as is that way. But because the large influx of phone calls are coming in more so on the dental line, we kind of need to find some partners that way. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that our service is going to dip at all. I mentioned to them that the outside organization that we were hiring, they will be trained specifically by our internal people so that we could control a lot of the messages and a lot of the service expectations that we were portraying onto them. So everything would stay the same in our department. Nobody had anything to worry about, but obviously if they had any additional concerns or anything going forward, that was one of the things that I told my team, just let me know about that, because I thrive off of that feedback and I make sure to stay accountable for it. So.
Okay, awesome. Why are you leaving your current job or just looking for another job?
I think the current state right now, like I mentioned, especially with COVID, there's a lot of those stresses and a lot of the camaraderie that used to just happen between people is starting to decline a little bit. And so I'm starting to see a little bit more of a need in the world for organizations to step up to the plate and really, step up to that challenge and provide the customer experience in a way that those customers expect when calling into other organizations. So again, like I mentioned, I'm looking to consult with other businesses and other partners to be able to do that and help provide that level of expectation for their customer service employees, and help those employees stay engaged and thrive in the work that they do, rather than having a lot of that anxiety and that fear that they may have when talking to other customers.
Okay. Yeah. Can you explain to me why you changed career paths or are looking in a different area than what you currently are?
Yeah, for sure. Well, obviously I've been in the career path that I've been in for quite some time. So this example may take me back quite a few years, but there was a time where I worked a little bit more retail facing rather than in more call center type work. And so in that retail environment, it's a lot more face-to-face kind of communication with people. And it was a little different, I guess, being in that kind of environment. And I wanted to experience some new things and kind of develop on some new skills to really help myself grow. And so in more of a starter type job that you would normally have as a young high school age kid, that's kind of where I started. And eventually after graduation, I wanted to move on to bigger and better things. And so I started off very humbly as one of the people on the phone, and kind of helping customers more over the phone rather than face to face, and just kind of took it from there and continued to progress forward in my position. I eventually became a support role for a lot of the folks that were on the phones. So I took a lot of supervisor calls, and I also helped make sure that a lot of the databases with the information that we quote on the phone were updated in more of a timely manner, rather than focusing more specifically on just phone calls. So that's kind of how the career progression has gone. After doing that, obviously I moved into my supervisor role that I am in right now. So lots of progression I think has happened, but in terms of staying in the same field, I've been here for about 7.5 years, and I feel like it's what I'm really, really good at. So.
Okay, yeah. No, that makes sense. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but what's your work style, and kind of, do you prefer to work more in a team setting or just like individually? And just, that's a pretty simple one.
Yeah, for sure. Preference in terms of that regard, I definitely am more of a people person.
Okay.
Which I feel like is the whole reason I became a supervisor in the first place, is just to be able to help people really come together and kind of put people together. So team environment definitely is my more preferred place to be, rather than individually. But that doesn't mean, I guess, that I can't do either one. So.
Okay. Yeah. How would your boss and coworkers describe you?
I'm a very driven individual. Sometimes to my detriment, I will kind of get straight to the point with certain things, and definitely try to meet deliverables so that there is more time at the end of, a hard project or a lot of hard day at work or anything like that. I'm here just to be able to be that listening ear when those kinds of things happen. So even though I do get straight to the point, I always make sure to have time to build that team environment as well. So.
Okay, awesome. What are some things that you like to do outside of work?
I am a huge sports fan. So if I'm not working, I'm usually watching some kind of sport, playing some kind of sport. I particularly enjoy golf and basketball. I grew up playing rugby and things like that as well. So those are all big sports that I follow. And I'm also a bit of a video gamer. So those are just kind of some of the hobbies and things like that I have outside work.
Okay, awesome. Just on the organizational side of everything, will you explain to me like how you keep projects organized? And you kind of talked about this earlier, but more specifically about like your whole system. I think that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the organizational side of things, like if I'm trying to manage a project and things like that, I feel like there's a lot of software out there to be able to help with a lot of this, but in my job progression, I didn't really use a lot of that software at all. So I kind of had to find some things that work for me specifically. And oddly enough, I actually use Microsoft Excel to help plan out timelines and plan out task lists and things like that. And so rather than trying to put specific timelines in certain things or anything like that, I usually will color code it and fill out each individual cell just to kind of help make more of a visual representation of things. And then as I receive files from a lot of the other stakeholders and everything inside of each of those projects, I will usually try and save those in a central location named under specific files for who needs to send it to me or what kind of topic that they're for. And so that's a little bit more specifically, I guess, that kind of gets into more of the technical aspect of it. But just because that's how I grew up, so to speak, to learn how to do projects, it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't use much more of those ease of use software that makes doing a lot of that much easier. So.
Okay, awesome. Another question for kind of outside of work, but what are you passionate about? And you talked about sports. Is there anything else, or playing sports? That's it, or?
Yeah. Passion. So I have more of a personal mission, I guess, for myself to be able to help people live the best lives that they possibly can.
Okay, awesome.
And I do that in a lot of ways. Obviously, I work in the healthcare industry right now. And in healthcare, you're dealing with some of the most important things in people's lives. You're dealing with their finances, you're dealing with their health, and you're dealing with their family. And so those are obviously things that I feel like just about everybody is passionate about. But I feel like any sort of customer service role or anything like that is way bigger than I think some people give it credit for, because we as customer service people are way more than just a face behind a screen trying to help uphold a reputation for a company and help provide revenue and things like that. I think overall we play a much bigger role in the communities that we serve. And so as far as like what I'm passionate about, I'm passionate about helping people live their best possible life, whether that be financially, being happy in the work that they do, living a healthy life, and things like that. So I every action I take pretty much in life helps drive those kinds of things.
Okay. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I hopefully help to own my own business, helping consult specifically for customer service. But more than that, offer services to be able to help consult on operational processes and ways to help partner with other organizations to improve overall customer service, satisfaction, employee engagement, and employee satisfaction within the companies that I will partner with.
Okay, really cool. So we're a little bit flexible here at this company. We have some people working from home the whole week and other people in office. What would you prefer? And there's like kind of some room in the middle where we have 3 people working in office, 2 days at home. What type of that schedule would you prefer?
Yeah, I would probably prefer more of that hybrid schedule, kind of working a couple of days at home and then most of the time in the office, just to be able to help my face be seen and, like I said, help build some of that team environment. So.
Okay, awesome. And then the last question, do you have any questions for us or about the job or anything?
At this particular juncture, I do not.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Okay, awesome.